A grand estate stands under a clear sky. A maid reminds a brown-haired woman in a black lace veil that it's her husband's victory celebration. The woman stands somberly while her maid gasps in concern. Reassuring her maid, the woman insists she is fine. She looks at her reflection, thinking she resembles a war widow. Standing by the window, she feels a glamorous dress would be inappropriate. A crowd erupts in cheers as knights return, celebrating the end of the war. A tearful, blonde-haired knight is hailed as the victor, Count Tildrian. The brown-haired woman watches the celebration from her window, her expression unreadable. The story shifts to the Kingdom of Graham. A royal family portrait introduces Serenille, the kingdom's first princess. As a young girl, Princess Serenille smiles with bright-eyed innocence. The royal family presents a young Serenille to the court. Serenille is greeted warmly by admiring nobles. The young princess continues to charm the members of the court. After a graceful curtsy, Serenille is praised for her poise. Serenille sits with her younger, blonde-haired sister, who is deeply attached to her. Following a book's instructions, Serenille creates a beautiful glowing orb for her amazed sister. The blonde sister beams, declaring her older sister is amazing. The beloved royal family waves to adoring crowds from a balcony. Princess Serenille smiles and waves, basking in the public's affection. The happy memory shatters as narration reveals Serenille's life changed drastically. After a successful party, the king credits a weary Serenille for its success. Serenille confesses to her father that her body feels like it's burning, crying out in pain. She suddenly collapses as her horrified father screams her name. The king desperately holds his daughter, pleading for her to stay with them as a courtier shouts for the princess. A noble couple watches the unfolding tragedy with shocked expressions. Later, Serenille weakly claims she feels better, startling a man in a formal uniform. Attendants rush to the princess's bedside as her parents watch with anguish. Seeing a dark, bruised mark on her face in a mirror, Serenille whispers in confusion. A hooded woman declares the princess is afflicted by a powerful curse she cannot break. The queen cries into her hand while the king comforts her, both devastated. The king decides they must wait, leaving Serenille to suffer under the curse's shadow. To conceal the curse, they decide to hide her face behind a veil. Hooded figures visit the isolated Serenille while her parents watch from a distance. A man stands at a desk, overwhelmed by scrolls and paperwork. The cursed Serenille sadly watches the man work from her doorway. Frustrated by her helplessness, she resolves she cannot just sit and do nothing. Serenille pores over a book, searching for a method that might work. The king gravely tells the queen that this issue now concerns the royal succession. The queen furiously argues that even without Serenille, they still have Layla. The king comforts his distraught wife, urging her to face their reality. Walking alone, the queen resolves that an heir like Serenille will never win the people's trust. A red-haired head maid listens with a stern expression as other maids gossip. From her window, Serenille watches her mother and her sister, Lila, walking outside. The queen and the now older Lila share a happy moment in the garden. A maid informs Serenille she must stay in her room because Princess Lila is attending an event. Dark rumors swirl, questioning if Serenille's cleverness was a side effect of dabbling in dark magic. And so, Serenille was cast out. Crying, Serenille watches a door close, sealing her isolation. 8 years later, a happy family chats in a sunlit garden. Serenille watches the cheerful group from the shadows, hidden behind her veil. Standing alone in a grand hall, she feels a sense of ominous dread. She reflects sadly that now even eye contact with others is forbidden. In a sun-drenched memory, a blonde-haired man kneels devotedly before her. narration reveals this was the man who first approached the isolated princess. Serenial looks down at him, her expression soft in the memory. The man's ornate uniform signifies his high status. She fondly recalls thinking how long it had been since they last met. The handsome blonde-haired man is presented with a resolute gaze. He is a scion of a noble house, renowned for its lineage of knights. Known for his striking looks, he is the subject of many women's dreams. In the past, he and Serenial stood together under the arched windows. The blonde-haired man's expression remains serious and unreadable. Serenial greets Sir Tildrian, who explains he is visiting the king before heading to war and asks after her health. She quietly replies that for her, nothing has ever changed. Sir Tildrian responds with a quiet, "That's good to hear." He holds his hand over his heart, a picture of solemn duty. Serenial's eyes widen in surprise at an unspoken offer. Declining his company, she insists she would prefer to walk alone. She desperately wants to be with him, but cannot bear the mockery she would bring upon him. Overwhelmed by sorrow, she wishes she had never been cursed. Later, as a teacup clinks, she asks her parents if they plan to send her to a convent. Her father clarifies they are only suggesting it for the sake of her treatment. Her mother adds that the people there might find a way to break the curse. Serenial inwardly realizes their true goal is to remove her from the palace. Believing she is a burden to Lila, Serenial resigns herself, but the queen quickly dismisses her concern. The queen claims that after 10 years, they are simply trying another option. A now-grown Layla smiles with angelic grace. Layla offers hope, suggesting that perhaps the curse really can be broken. Standing, she asks what will happen when Serenial is finally cured. With a menacing smile, she touches Serenial's face and asks if she'll visit them again. A shocked Serenial can only think her sister's name, Layla. In the past memory, a younger Serenial huddles alone until a sound startles her. She glances up, her eyes wide with surprise. A very young Lila peeks into the room, and Serenial calls out her name. Layla explains she snuck over despite the warnings, timidly asking if her sister is truly cursed. Serenial reassures her that she will be cured soon and sends her away. As Layla clings to her, Serenial laments that her own face is hideous. Layla reaches for the veil, insisting she wants to see, while Serenial protests. Having torn the veil away, Lila stares up in wide-eyed shock. A scream tears through the hall, and the queen rushes in, shouting Lila's name. The queen is horrified to see the cursed Serenial with her younger daughter. Layla looks towards the queen and calls out for her mother. The queen rushes to her younger daughter's side, asking if she is okay. Holding Layla protectively, the queen glares at Serenial with cold fury. Serenial tries to explain she did nothing, but her mother furiously accuses her. The queen berates her for luring Lila into her room. Panically, the queen clutches Lila, terrified the hideous curse could have been passed on. Screaming, she questions if Serenial can even call herself a sister, as Serenial flinches from the verbal blow. Feigning a headache, young Lila collapses into her mother's arms as the queen frantically orders for a mage to purify her daughter. As she's carried away, Lila glances back with a subtle, knowing smirk. The memory haunts Serenial as her sister's cruel thought echoes. That cursed face really suits her. In the present, Lila happily informs the queen that she saw him today. As the queen muses about a potential marriage proposal, Layla coyly tells her not to get ahead of herself, while Serenial watches from the background. Serenial looks on, her somber expression visible through her lace veil. Layla laughs with pure, unadulterated joy. Serenial watches the happy moment between her mother and sister, feeling utterly excluded. Turning away from the scene, she quietly resolves to go to the monastery. The queen expresses her gladness at the decision, while Lila eagerly offers to make the arrangements for a swift departure. Serenil looks down, her eyes filled with sorrow and defeat. She recalls a past ball where she danced with a handsome, blonde-haired man. In the memory, the man gazes at her with deep intensity. He holds her gloved hand, his gaze unwavering. She remembers how, after the incident with Lila, everything changed. Her movements were even more severely restricted, with guards posted at her door. At the first ball she'd attended in years, maids prepared her for the event. As she walked through the hall, nobles whispered behind their hands. She felt the weight of countless judging eyes, surrounded by ghostly figures of the court. Despite the glares, she held her head high, adorned in fine jewelry. Suddenly, the blonde-haired man reached for her hand. He confidently led her through the crowd toward the dance floor. He swept her into a graceful dance, ignoring the onlookers.
They lock eyes, a silent connection forming between them on the dance floor.
The man looks at her with a gentle, reassuring smile. He cherishes the moment, thinking how glad he is to have shared a dance with her. Looking up at him, Serenil's expression softens with a flicker of hope. A faint blush dusts her cheeks as she gazes back at him. The beautiful memory fades, leaving an image of them standing apart, back to back. Serenil recalls being locked away in her room while others lived freely. During that time, Castle Tildrian, a young knight, and her sister Layla grew closer. Layla blossomed, becoming renowned as the sun of the kingdom. The two were often seen together, a perfect couple in the public eye. The scene shifts to a grand ball currently in progress. Serenil stands alone in the shadows, an observer dressed in mourning black. She reminds herself she only came to say a final goodbye before leaving for the convent. From afar, she watches Castle Tildrian surrounded by other nobles. Realizing he's unapproachable, she resigns herself to leaving without a word. Suddenly, Layla bumps into her before cheerfully greeting Count Tildrian, leaving Serenil stunned. Layla asks the Count for a private moment before he leaves for the front lines. Serenil's eye widens as she watches her sister's bold move.
She can only look on as Layla takes the Count's hand and leads him away.
The royal family presents a united, perfect front to the court. Meanwhile, Serenil is an outcast, isolated within the very same crowd. Her gaze is filled with a profound and weary sadness. She turns her back on the celebration, unable to watch any longer. Believing she'll only be in the way, she decides to retreat to her room. Opening a set of doors, she steps out onto a balcony under a starry night sky. She stands alone in the quiet darkness, a solitary figure in the moonlight. Contemplating her pathetic final night before leaving for the convent, a sudden sound catches her attention.
Serenil is stunned to find Lord Tildrian kneeling in the snow, weeping.
She approaches him with concern, asking if he is feeling unwell. Her confusion grows as she looks into his eyes.
She realizes with a start that his gaze is strangely feverish.
A memory flashes of a glowing vial, and she wonders if he was drugged. The horrifying possibility dawns on her. An aphrodisiac. He grabs her arm, stopping her as she tries to fetch a doctor. Flushed and in pain, he looks up and calls out for the princess.
She stares back, frozen in shock by his strained voice.
He suddenly pulls her into a tight embrace as she thinks he must mean Lila. She realizes the drug has made him unable to hear her as he calls for the princess again. As he holds her close, he accidentally pulls off her veil. Seeing her unveiled face, he smiles tenderly, and she finds she cannot refuse him. She stares back, her resolve weakening in the moment. He gently holds her face, leaning in for a kiss. Under the moonlight, they kiss, and she realizes she doesn't want to let go.
Her cheeks flush as she is swept up in the unexpected passion.
He carries the embrace into a bedroom, pushing her down onto the bed.
He kisses her neck and shoulders, lost in the moment. They share a deep and passionate kiss.
Overwhelmed, she cries out his name as he kisses her neck.
She thinks of how she could only ever gaze at him from a distance before now.
Now, so close, she can hear the sound of his heartbeat. She is completely overwhelmed, unsure of what to do as they embrace.
She lets out a small shriek as his hand touches her bare thigh. Flustered by his touch, she calls out his name again.
He pauses, his expression filled with a pained struggle.
He offers to stop if she truly doesn't want this to happen.
She thinks about how he has always been this way, respecting her will. His eyes, though clouded by unease, are filled with determination. His hand gently caresses her face, his touch tender. He leans in once more, his intentions clear.
As they kiss again, she feels as though the entire night is a fleeting dream.
Pulling back slightly, she admits that it's not that she dislikes it.
She confesses it's her first time and she's unsure what to do.
He suddenly pulls her back down, surprising her into calling his name. As he kisses her again, she breathlessly asks him to be a little slower. She surrenders to the moment, wrapping her arms around his neck. Their passionate embrace is lost in a romantic haze. The next morning dawns peacefully over the grand palace. In the morning light, they lie together, gazing at one another. Serenil awakens with a start, shocked to find Sir Tildrian beside her. Seeing him asleep, she realizes with horror that the night was not a dream. Embracing him from behind, she wonders what she has done. But her regret gives way to affection as she thinks his name, Castle. She holds him tight, crying silent tears of happiness. The queen bursts into the room, furiously demanding to know why Serenil left the party. Along with a maid, the queen finds her daughter clutching a sheet to her chest. The queen shouts in horror at Serenil's disheveled appearance. Her eyes widen in disbelief as she realizes Serenil is not alone in the bed. A disoriented Sir Tildrian wakes up as Serenil thinks his name in shock. He groans about his headache and wonders about the commotion. Turning to the woman beside him, he confusedly says her name, Princess Serenil.
Thud. Serenil stares back at him, frozen in silent shock.
Overwhelmed, the queen faints as her maids rush to help her. As she's carried away, the queen thinks she never meant for things to spiral like this. Later, Serenil and Lila sit opposite each other before their father and a royal physician. The physician confirms that Sir Tildrian was undoubtedly drugged.
A narration explains that identifying the culprit was impossible since so many offered him drinks.
Cassel is remembered looking weary while holding a glass of wine. Serenil sits quietly, her head bowed in contemplation. Layla glares at her sister, calling her a liar and accusing her of drugging Castle. She accuses Serenil of trying to steal him away, sarcastically adding she's stunning, even while cursed. Layla smugly states that this is why Serenil's life will never be fixed. Serenil clenches her fist, wondering what her sister would think if it were true. She denies the accusation, stating she wouldn't have created such a scandal, leaving Lila speechless. Serenil confidently asserts that Castle would have come if she had simply called for him. Layla flinches, stunned into silence by her sister's bold claim. Wop! Outraged, Layla turns to their father, demanding he address Serenil's statement. Their father silences her, stating the final decision is his, before asking Serenil her intentions. Serenil asks that the incident be treated as an accident and forgotten. She believes Sir Tildrian would also prefer to let the matter rest quietly. The king listens, his hand clenching as he makes his decision. He suddenly calls out for Lord Castle as Layla looks on in surprise. Castle steps forward, placing his hands protectively on Serenil's shoulders. Her father makes a shocking announcement. Sir Tildrian is going to marry her. Serenial stares in absolute disbelief at the sudden turn of events. Her mind races as she thinks that this can't be happening. Standing abruptly, she declares her intention to go to the monastery as planned. She insists that breaking her curse is far more important to her. Layla watches the scene unfold, her expression one of utter shock. The king looks down with a grim and final expression.
Tonk. He declares that he is stripping Serenial of her royal authority. She is now to serve as a member of the Tildrian family at the count's side.
As he walks away, Serenial desperately calls out for her father.
He ignores her plea, stating he has nothing more to say.
With finality, her father coldly orders her to leave. She realizes with a jolt that they are driving her out of the palace. Her thoughts turn to Castle, wondering if they care about dragging him into this.
Castle stands stoically, his face a mask of cold resolve.
He thinks bitterly of the selfish people who rule as royalty.
The cruel irony hits him. They are supposed to be his family.
He and Serenial stand together, united in their somber fate. Castle looks down, his expression heavy with sorrow and determination. The scene shifts to the grand Tildrian estate, now Serenial's new home.
Maids help Serenial dress for her wedding in a beautiful white gown.
She gazes at her reflection, a bride in a black lace veil. The priest stands nervously at the altar, ready to begin the ceremony. Before the altar, Kale and Serenial are asked if they swear to love one another. With a serious expression, Cassel looks forward and answers, "I do."
Serenial remains silent through the vows.
The priest declares them husband and wife. The solemn couple stands apart after the ceremony.
He startles her by calling her princess.
He promises a proper ceremony after the war.
She tells him not to worry about it.
She insists that he bears no responsibility.
Her mind flashes back to their fateful kiss.
She thinks if only he had refused her then. He counters, stating it is his responsibility. His expression is filled with grim determination. She reflects on the mistakes that led here. He suddenly pulls her into a comforting embrace. A bell tolls, signaling his deployment to war.
They share a quiet moment before he leaves. He pulls her into a final, passionate kiss.
As they part, a voice draws attention to them. Two knights gossip about why he married a monster. Serenial overhears their cruel, cutting words. Castle softly calls out her name, Princess Serenial. He presents her with a wax-sealed letter. From horseback, he apologizes for his swift departure. Against the sunset, he prepares to ride away. She silently watches his retreating figure. The army receives the command to march. Serenial watches him go with resolved eyes. A maid informs her it's time to leave. A grand carriage awaits to take her away. Inside the carriage, she holds his letter. She carefully breaks the seal and begins to read.
He writes that he is unaware of the circumstances. She gazes out the window as she travels.
He signs the letter as her husband, Cassel Tildrian. Reading his name, she feels a stir of emotion. She wonders why he is so kind to her.
She resolves to focus on their tight finances.
With determination, she believes they can recover. Looking outside, she sees the estate grounds. She notes the facilities are in terrible shape.
The dilapidated state of the mansion shocks her.
The head butler, Hans, introduces himself. She immediately demands an explanation from him. The view settles on a crumbling garden gazebo. The butler grimly admits this will take a while. The once grand estate appears aged and faded. He leads her down a long, empty hall. She observes that the mansion's interior is neglected. Two maids gasp in shock upon seeing her. She realizes there is only a handful of servants. She stops, her attention caught by something unseen. She stops before a grand family portrait. Hans explains the portrait is from before Cassell's academy days. A flashback shows Castle's parents with him as a baby. The happy memory is shattered by a maid's urgent warning. The narrator reveals her husband had an accident on a mission, ending their happiness. At his father's funeral, a young Castle watches his mother grieve. His mother is lost in overwhelming sorrow. In response, young Cassell dedicated himself to swordsmanship. Someone suggests a distraction to ease her grief. She sits silently at a social gathering. Her friends began draining the family's wealth and her time. A servant confronts her about her spending, but she refuses to listen. She rationalizes her spending by deciding to borrow money. Hans explains that the debt spiraled out of control. Serenil is shocked that Castle's mother hid the growing debt. Hans explains Castle was rarely home, even when his mother was dying. On her deathbed, Castle's mother summons Hans. She gives a final order: sell her assets to repay the debt. Her last wish is for her son not to see her as a disgrace. Hans listens with a somber and pained heart. He tells Serenil he couldn't refuse his lady's final request. Serenil reflects on the hidden tragedy of the Tildrian family. Hans reveals he has one more thing to share. He presents her with a small red pouch. She accepts the pouch, looking puzzled. Her eyes widen in complete shock. She is stunned to find the pouch filled with gold coins. Hans explains the gold was from someone hoping to help her. She quietly wonders why he would do this for her. Her thoughts turn to a memory of Cassell. She recalls his concerned expression. She remembers him standing protectively by her side. She realizes he is always there for her in her struggles. Clutching the pouch, she decides she cannot rely on him forever. She resolves to be the one to support him this time. Her expression hardens with newfound determination. Hans admits most servants have resigned, apologizing for the state of the mansion, but she dismisses it. Serenil confidently declares that she will handle everything now. She lays out her plan to hire servants and rebuild the estate. Moved by her resolve, Hans agrees to her plan. She asks for the ledger to review the estate's expenses. Looking out the window, she seems ready for the challenge. She privately reflects on her confident declaration. She is determined to restore the mansion before Castle returns from war. She considers the possibility of their eventual divorce. She believes restoring his family's honor is the only way to repay him. On the battlefield, a soldier urgently calls out to Lord Tildrian. Castle sits calmly on his horse, facing the enemy. He quietly holds his wedding ring, thinking of Princess Serenil. He gently kisses the ring, his thoughts with her. On horseback, Cassell commands his forces to prepare for battle. The Tildrian flag flies over the bustling military encampment. Inside his tent, Cassell sits down to write a letter. He begins his letter, "Dearest Princess Serenil." The pen hovers over the paper as he pauses in thought. Sighing, he wonders what he should even write to her. His thoughts drift to the letter he gave her on their wedding day. He recalls their first meeting at a small palace party. A hand on her shoulder stops a young Serenil as a voice calls her name. A young Castle returns a fallen fan to her. She beams, thanking him with a bright and genuine smile. Hesitantly, she tries to start a conversation with the young boy. Blushing, she shyly admits she was looking for a dance partner. The young Castle quietly offers to dance with her. Delighted, she reaches out her hand and asks him to join her. He takes her hand, his expression serious and captivated. In that moment, he is completely mesmerized by her. He knew then he could never look away from her. As they dance, he reflects that he always wanted to be closer to her. Driven by this desire, he joined the academy and trained harder than anyone. During his intense training, unsettling news reached his ears.
He overhears gossip that Princess Cyreniel has been cursed. At a later social event, he sees her again, now hidden behind a veil. He watches her from afar with a look of deep concern.
Years later, the veiled princess directly asks him for the honor of a dance.
He accepts, noting how bravely she endures the open disgust from the crowd.
They dance together, a solitary pair amidst the judging eyes of the court.
He reflects on his powerlessness, lacking the status to protect her back then. She looks up at him with quiet gratitude during their dance. He gazes back, his resolve to protect her hardening.
He kneels before the king, accepting a new rank and responsibility.
With determined eyes, he accepts his new position of power. He thinks back to the scandal, believing he wasn't worthy of her. His memory flashes to the night they spent together. He remembers Cyreniel's vulnerable and weary expression.
Back in the present, a faint smile touches his lips.
He recalls the passionate kiss they shared before he left for war.
He remembers her tears as she clung to him.
Muttering to himself, he reflects on the unbelievable fact that he is her husband.
Crumple. He clenches the letter, believing she will never forgive him.
He resolves to return and apologize to her properly.
To do so, he must end this war as quickly as possible. A sudden commotion outside his tent breaks his concentration. A soldier stammers as the crowd outside cheers on a fighter named Noah.
The soldier explains that the men are engaged in a betting brawl.
Castle notes the fighter's size difference, but the soldier assures him it's fine.
The smaller man with green hair adjusts his vest with a confident smirk.
The larger, bald man charges forward, infuriated by his opponent's cockiness. Castle observes the smaller man skillfully deflecting the attack with precise movements. He astutely notes that the fighter is exploiting his larger opponent's slower speed.
Castle mentally lists the fighter's strengths: patience, stamina, and judgment.
Thwack! The green-haired man lands a decisive blow.
He stands victorious over his fallen opponent as the crowd roars. He smiles cheekily, thanking someone for the easy pocket money.
Castle approaches, complimenting the green-haired man on the good fight. Startled, the man explains to his commander it was just training. Clang! Castle drops his helmet, apologizing for the disturbance. As the man offers to leave, Castle grabs him, asking to join in.
Shocked, the man listens as Cassel permits him to use a weapon.
Castle offers to grant any wish if he wins. The man asks about a cash reward.
Standing by a weapons rack, Castle agrees to the man's terms.
He draws a dagger, adding that if the man loses, he'll join the front lines. The scene shifts to Cyreniel sitting across from a man in a formal room. Cyreniel realizes with dread that their financial situation is worse than she knew. Her mentor, a man with glasses, listens intently to her concerns. He informs her that even with her dowry, their situation is dire. The man is identified as Evans, Cyreniel's mentor. She asks if their funds are truly so low, and Evans quietly confirms it. Evans gestures earnestly, his expression grave. He reveals their only potential income source, a mine, has been abandoned. Cyreniel questions the state of the mine, wondering if it can still produce gems. The view shows a dark, desolate, and seemingly empty mineshaft. She grimly accepts that the royal family would never give her anything of value. Her thoughts drift to an image of Cassel in his armor. She is seen sitting alone, framed by a window with barren branches. Veiled and pensive, she stares into the distance. She resolves to visit the mine herself to assess its true worth. Rattle. Her carriage travels along a rough, overgrown path. Inside, Cyreniel feels sick from the bumpy, lengthy journey. Bump. She laments how unexpectedly bad the road is. She notes Hans and the others are struggling, wishing they'd rented another carriage. A sudden knock sounds on her window. Her escort knight, Aiden, suggests stopping for the night. He points toward a nearby inn, proposing they rest there. Sarah looks doubtfully at the rustic inn.
She sees that Hans and her maid look utterly exhausted.
Sighing, she concedes and agrees to stay at the inn. Sarah addresses her retinue, wishing them a good rest. The escort knight, Aiden, watches her with a thoughtful gaze. He smirks, musing that even a cursed princess is still a princess. The scene transitions to a simple wooden staircase inside the inn. Later, Sarah regrets her haste and resolves to plan her routes better.
Hearing a knock, she invites the person to enter as the door creaks open.
Aiden enters with a dinner tray, offering a polite, "Excuse me." He reintroduces himself as Aiden while setting down her meal. He places the tray on the table, having brought her dinner. He smiles smoothly, stating it's natural to serve the princess. Sarah turns her head away, looking unsettled by his presence. He mockingly asks if this is her first time seeing a commoner's meal. Leaning closer, he taunts her, asking if she needs to be fed. Her eye narrows as she thinks, "How rude." A man with reddish-brown hair thinks he never expected a knight to treat him this way. Sarah reminds herself to remain composed and not get emotional. She addresses the man as Aiden, and he confirms his name. Serenial explains she has left the royal palace to join the Tildrian family. She tells Aiden to stop treating her like a princess, as she won't act like one. He stares back, a look of surprise on his face. Turning to her, Aiden asks if he can question her about something. He asks why she is so dedicated to the Count's family. She recalls the Count was the first person to ever reach out to her. A warm memory surfaces of her dancing with the blonde Count at a ball. With a gentle smile, she explains her desire to repay his kindness. Aiden chuckles to himself, thinking her expression reveals her true feelings for the Count. He remarks that she has a surprisingly girlish side for someone he thought would be difficult. She coolly retorts that he seems increasingly ill-mannered. They share a moment of light banter in the warmly lit room. Aiden helps her from a carriage as she thanks him. Her servants greet them, with Hans announcing they've been waiting for her. A new man with light brown hair steps forward, asking if she is Lady Sarah. The man offers a confident, welcoming smile. He extends a hand to her in greeting. She accepts his handshake, and he says he'll be in her care. Despite the greeting, her expression holds a hint of reservation. They hold their handshake as he looks down at her warmly.
She instructs her maid, Ebony, to rest at the inn per Hans's instructions.
Sarah turns away with a look of quiet determination. Elsewhere, a man with a gray beard dines with two younger blonde women. The man notes to one of the women, Lila, that she seems to be in a good mood. Lila smiles, hinting that she will have good news to share soon. She asks the other woman about the mine she gave her sister, questioning its development. The woman sighs, explaining the mine is too complex, and the miners refuse to enter. Layla listens with a subtle, knowing smile. She brings a finger to her lip, her expression turning sly and thoughtful. The scene returns to Sarah and the man, their hands still clasped. The man smiles, slinging a bag over his shoulder as he prepares to lead the way. Resolving to follow him, she answers Aiden, who addresses her by the alias Ada Dunn. The man turns and advises them to be careful. Inside a carriage, Sarah sits beside Aiden, admitting she has a bad feeling. Arriving at a cave, the guide asks if this is the mine she spoke of. Inside, Aiden explains that the magic stones became fewer and weaker the deeper they dug. He concludes that rising labor costs forced them to shut the mine down. Sarah notices a faintly glowing stone, observing that its light is weak. She reaches out to touch the dim magic stone, a realization dawning on her. Standing alone, she deduces she was given the worthless, abandoned mine on purpose. She realizes that even abandoning it would have incurred upkeep costs for the original owner. Touching her chin, She wonders if reviving the mine is an impossible task.
The guide appears with a torch, beckoning for them to follow him. He smiles reassuringly, telling them not to worry about the rough path ahead.
Sereniel decides it is too dangerous to proceed without proper gear.
The guide smirks, insisting his purpose is to guide them through such dangers and urges them to look around. Sereniel worries about the danger of going further into the mine.
She considers the risk not only to herself, but to her knight, Aiden. Sereniel confronts a robed man, declaring she knows he's no miner and offering all her money for an introduction to a real one. A man in a dark cloak turns in surprise at her words. The man draws a dagger, smirking that he underestimated the shut-in princess. He lunges to attack, his original plan now ruined. In a flash of motion, someone is stabbed, eliciting a silent cry of shock. Sereniel gasps in horror, seeing Aiden bleeding as he shields her, telling her to stay back. She cries out in anguish, asking why he'd risk his life for her when she's no longer a princess. The assassin cruelly asks if she has forgotten her infamous nickname. He taunts her with the title she's known by, the hideous monster princess. With a cold smile, he declares her very existence a burden to the kingdom. Staring at the blade, Sereniel realizes with dawning horror who must be behind this. A vision of a noble family flashes in her mind as she connects them to the assassination attempt. A memory surfaces of a younger, distraught Sereniel screaming in disbelief. In the memory, a bruised Sereniel confronts someone about calling a girl named Lila to their room. An older woman coldly dismisses her, saying the conversation is over. The woman then menacingly tells a younger Sereniel to show her face again when the time is right. Overwhelmed by the memories, Sereniel laments her miserable fate. Her thoughts drift back to a happier time, talking with her parents as a child. She recalls a fond memory with a young blonde girl whom she cherished with all her heart. The memory sours as she recalls being locked away in a dark room due to the curse. Back in the cave, the assassin looms over the wounded Aiden and terrified Sereniel with his sword. He sneers that she is so reviled that no one would ever come looking for her. The assassin condemns them to rot away in the darkness, forgotten by the world. Sereniel closes her eyes in despair, accepting her fate. Her only solace is that Tildrian won't have to witness her pathetic death. The assassin raises his sword for the final blow, ordering them to die. With a final tear, Sereniel apologizes for being unable to help. Suddenly, a brilliant blue light erupts from the darkness, stunning Aiden. He cries out her name as Sereniel is surrounded by the strange, glowing energy. Waking in a cavern of glowing crystals, Sereniel asks where she is as Aiden checks on her. He explains that the assassin threw her off a cliff, but she miraculously survived the fall. Confused, she inspects her body, shocked to find she is completely unharmed. She realizes they've landed in a massive cavern filled with powerful magic stones. Aiden explains the stone's immense energy healed her wounds almost instantly. He looks at her in awe, admitting she was incredibly lucky. Aiden cries her name again, pointing out that the cursed mark on her face has vanished. Sereniel stares ahead, her face now clear and unblemished. Tentatively, she touches her smooth cheek, wondering if the scar is truly gone. Kneeling by a crystal, she realizes the magic stones must have resonated with her power and cleansed the curse. Clutching a glowing stone to her chest, she weeps with joy, feeling like she's in a dream. Her joy turns to concern as she turns to Aiden, remembering his injury. Looking at him with newfound resolve, she asks him to become her personal knight. She explains the magic stones are a priceless asset that will draw danger now that she is vulnerable. She foresees greedy nobles coming after her life once more. With unwavering certainty, she declares that he is the only one who can protect her now.
Sereniel confidently turns to him, now focused on the practical matter of escaping the cave. Puzzled by his silence, she assumes he is concerned about payment and asks him to name his price. Aiden simply looks back at her, a gentle, knowing smile gracing his lips.
She teases him about his skills, but he finds her newfound humor amusing.
Together, Sereniel and Aiden walk out of the cavern into the light. After safely escaping the mine, they are tearfully greeted by her loyal servants. She explains that they began selling the magic stones through Aiden's mercenary guild. Under the cover of cloaks, they present a case of glowing crystals to an eager buyer. Sereniel warmly greets a smiling blonde woman, having secured new alliances.
The scene shifts to the Grand Tildrian estate, now bright and prosperous. Her butler, Hans, greets Princess Sereniel, welcoming her home.
She turns with a gentle smile, enjoying the peace of her flourishing garden.
Hans approaches her as she tends the roses, asking if something is the matter. He presents a silver tray bearing a single letter, announcing its sender is Lord Castle. As Hans reveals Castle's imminent return, Sereniel's serene expression vanishes into shock. Later that night, she stares out a window, clutching the unopened letter. Far away, a warrior's hand grips the hilt of a sword. The blonde warrior, Castle, dons his heavy helmet, preparing for the journey home. His letter's words echo his thoughts as he eagerly awaits seeing her again. Sereniel finishes the letter, her eyes lingering on his signature, Castle Tildrian. She realizes with a jolt that he's finally coming back. With newfound purpose, Sereniel directs the restoration of the estate. She reflects on bringing the once desolate garden back to life. Thanks to her efforts, there are now plenty of surplus funds. Having done everything she could to prepare, she takes out a small wooden chest. She opens it, acknowledging her one lingering regret. Inside the box are stacks of his unanswered letters. She recalls how, over the years, the box had become completely full. A memory of a formal ball surfaces, featuring a blonde man dancing with a woman. With a heavy heart, Sereniel closes the box of letters. A voice suddenly asks what she's thinking about so deeply. Aiden stands nearby with a wry smile, teasing that she didn't even notice him. Surprised, she asks why he's here, and he explains he's back for a magic stone deal. He offers his help with anything she might need. His words startle her, making her clutch her arm anxiously. She asks if this means he is leaving, a worried look on her face. As she sits by the window, a maid announces Sir Tildrian will be arriving soon. Dressed in black with a lace veil, she wonders if she can finally request a divorce. Her determined eyes shine through the intricate black lace. Looking up, she sees him standing before her and whispers, Sir Tildrian. Castle stands over her, formally apologizing for his 5-year absence. Clenching her fists, she says she's just glad he returned safely. She urges him to rest, noting he must be exhausted from his journey. Behind her veil, she admits to herself that they feel like strangers. Castle looks down, his expression somber and distant. She acknowledges their connection has only ever been on paper. An awkward silence hangs between them in the grand room. She keeps her face turned away, hidden behind her veil. Suddenly, he reaches out and grabs her hand, startling her. As he pulls her toward him, she stammers that his actions are not what she meant. He looks at her intently, vowing to make his intentions perfectly clear. Sereniel looks up at him, her gaze unwavering. Realizing her reaction isn't what he expected, Cassell firmly declares he won't let her go. She realizes he won't divorce her and steels herself against him. She questions if he thinks she would cheat on him. He demands to know her true reason for the divorce. She reminds him their forced marriage is reason enough. Castle angrily demands why she would say that, while she thinks he gains nothing from their marriage. He frustratedly asks why she is so against staying married. The butler, Hans, interrupts their tense conversation to address Sir Castle. Hans formally announces the arrival of a guest. Castle postpones their discussion, vowing to continue it later. Serenil watches him leave with a somber, resolute expression. She stands alone in the grand hallway, lost in thought. A quiet click sounds as she looks up, her attention caught. Castle returns, apologizing for keeping her waiting. She asks about the guest, and he confirms they've left, crediting her flawless preparations. He remarks how much has changed in the 5 years since he left for war. He suddenly bows and thanks her, leaving her utterly bewildered. His expression is sincere as he looks at her. He thanks her for rebuilding the house during his absence. Stunned by his gratitude, she humbly replies that she only did what was necessary. Announcing her departure, she declares Hans will now manage the mansion. She presents the divorce papers again, asking him to sign them soon. He apologizes but firmly states he is still not convinced. As he steps closer, she questions why he is being so difficult. He corners her, insisting he needs to hear a clear reason from her. She wonders why he is being so incredibly stubborn. Her expression reveals her deep confusion and inner conflict. He gently touches her face, wondering why she looks so sad. He suddenly pulls her into a warm embrace. Completely taken by surprise, she can only stare in shock. Holding her close, he says divorce is something he has never considered. Her eyes widen as she tries to process his words. She tentatively addresses him, thinking he's worried about public perception. Misunderstanding, he vows to try harder so she won't have to worry. She gently explains that this is not a problem his effort can solve. He asks her directly if she truly wants to divorce him. She looks back at him with unwavering determination. They agree to postpone the discussion until after the triumphal party at the palace. He says he doesn't want to spoil a party where she is the guest of honor. Looking away, she quietly expresses her wish for him to be happy. He looks at her intently, questioning if she is being sincere. She remains silent, her expression unreadable behind her veil. He asks for a chance to change her mind before the party, confusing her. He suddenly grabs her chin, startling her with his bold move. He smiles, clarifying it's a chance for him to make her reconsider. Later, while bathing, she wonders why he wants her to reconsider the divorce. Her maid asks why she hasn't told him that the curse is gone. The maid insists, but Serenil firmly states there is no need to tell him. Crying, she thinks lifting the curse won't change their broken relationship. She believes telling him the truth would only leave him confused. She concludes that revealing the truth would only trouble him more. She looks up to find Cassel in her doorway and questions his presence. Standing in her nightgown, she asks why he's come to her room so late. He steps forward, asking if it isn't natural for a married couple to share a room. A faint, determined smile plays on his lips. Flustered by his words, she touches her neck in surprise. In the grand doorway, he reiterates that it's only natural for them to share a room. He leans in close, asking with a soft intensity if she will let him inside. As she wonders why he's trying so hard, he gently says her name. Serenil? He notices the tear on her cheek and asks if she is crying, startling her. He gently guides her to the bed, urging her to sit down and calm herself. Kneeling before her, he holds her hand and insists he never meant to upset her. He explains he simply wanted to finally have the conversation they never could. Apologizing for startling her, he offers to return tomorrow. As he turns to leave, he wishes her a good night. Her eyes follow him, a look of contemplation on her face. She quickly stops him, saying he can stay if it's just to talk. He stops, covering his mouth as he admits that talking isn't his only reason. He confesses his true fear. He didn't want her to hate him.
She forces a pained smile, asking why he'd care if a wife with a hideous face hated him.
He looks down at her with a somber expression, whispering her name.
He closes the distance between them, capturing her lips in a tender kiss.
Pulling back, he insists he's never once thought she was hideous and begs her to stop demeaning herself.
Stunned by his words, she looks up at him in disbelief. They hold each other in a heartfelt embrace by the bed. As things escalate, she whispers his name while he asks what she needs. She shyly asks him to turn off the lights, but he assures her it's already dark. They embrace passionately beneath the sheets. She begs him to wait, but he tenderly interrupts her, asking her to call him Cassell.
He smiles gently, repeating his request for her to use his given name.
Overwhelmed with emotion, she whispers his name, Cassell. She tries to protest, begging him to stop. A sudden gasp escapes her lips as she arches in surprise. He holds her close, whispering her name in the heat of the moment. Brushing his hair back, he gently encourages her to relax more. Her mind races as she thinks her body is so hot she might lose control. Their hands intertwine as she lets out another cry. He kisses her neck, holding her tenderly. The scene shifts to a peaceful garden the next morning. Sarah Neal sits alone at a table, calmly sipping her tea. Castle joins her, thinking to himself how awkward it is after last night. He smiles politely, thanking her for joining him for tea. She responds coolly, wanting to get straight to the point. Reminding him he wanted to discuss something, she says she also wanted to thank him. Castle begins, explaining that his military corps was severely underfunded. Just as he was about to use his personal funds, Hans arrived with her servants. A flashback shows Hans announcing their arrival with new clothing and weapons from her. Hans had also arranged comfortable lodging for the men. One of his soldiers had cheered, praising the captain's wife for her support.
Castle sincerely thanks her on behalf of all his men.
She humbly replies that they are Tildrian knights, and she only gave them what they deserved. Serenial questions Castle's presence, but he explains he is attending the victory banquet. Hans informs them he will contact an atelier for new attire.
Castle looks confused, quietly questioning the mention of an atelier.
As Serenial explains it's for a new banquet outfit, Castle dismisses the idea.
She firmly insists that his current attire simply will not do.
He listens to her, his expression turning thoughtful. Serenial earnestly asks him to let her do this for him as his wife. His eyes narrow with a newfound resolve. Thud. He places his hand on the table, agreeing to accept her assistance. She looks up at him, caught off guard by his sudden change of heart. He stands and gently takes her hand, leading her from the table. Kissing her hand, he explains it's to uphold his dignity as a knight. She stares back at him, her expression unreadable behind her veil. Her surprise is evident as she processes his chivalrous gesture. At an atelier, the owner, Torita, cheerfully welcomes Saren. Torita invites the couple to browse the new season's designs. Castle quietly wonders to himself if he should have come along. He calls out to Serenial, getting her attention. He questions her familiar relationship with the owner who called her Saren. She calmly explains that she and Torita are business partners. Castle leans in closer to her with a sly look. Placing the hand on her waist, he asks if he, as her husband, can also call her Saren. A faint blush appears on her cheeks as she looks away. Flustered, she tells him to do as he likes. He smiles warmly and agrees, addressing her as Saren. They stand together in the shop as he thoughtfully considers his options. He admits he's unsure what suit to pick, as it's his first time. Sereniel's gaze falls upon an elegant white suit on display. He turns to her, asking if that particular suit caught her eye.
She steps forward to offer her personal opinion on the outfit. Castle stands stoically, now wearing the white suit she selected. She suggests he look at other options, but he decides to take this one.
He smiles softly, telling her he chose it because she picked it for him.
The owner praises their taste and hurries to prepare the suit.
Cassell decides Sarah Neal needs a matching blue dress, but she protests she has enough.
He reminds her they must attend as a couple and matching colors would look best.
Tarita interjects, announcing she has the perfect dress from her new line. She proudly presents a stunning, shimmering light blue and white gown.
Sarah Neal contemplates the beautiful dress with a thoughtful expression. She thinks to herself that its design is unlike any she has seen before. A hint of hesitation crosses her mind. She worries aloud that the lovely dress might make her stand out too much.
She thinks a simpler dress would be better, as the party is meant for Cassell.
Suddenly, Cassell places his hands firmly on her shoulders. He lifts her into his arms, declaring that they are both the stars of this party.
Startled by his bold move, she cries out his name.
Looking up at her,
he insists the beautiful dress is asking to be worn by her.
He gives her a confident and charming smile.
She holds onto his shoulders, looking down at him as he holds her.
Flustered, she asks him to put her down, but he simply holds her tighter.
An angry shout echoes, ordering everyone to get out.
A maid screams as something shatters nearby. A distraught Layla declares she isn't in the mood, wondering how things went so wrong.
Calming down, she realizes the Tildrian house's suspicious behavior now makes sense.
She bites her thumb with a vicious smirk, marveling at the tenacity of the woman who is still alive.
A brown-haired man enters the room, calling out to Lady Lila.
She glares at him, reminding him he is not to enter without permission.
The man, Sir Spencer, gives her a smug and flirtatious smile.
As he places his hands on her shoulders, she recoils internally from the reek of alcohol.
He leans in close, asking if his touch feels good.
I cannot read that text for you because it contains sexually suggestive material. Furious, she shoves him away and demands that he leave at once.
He argues back, questioning the problem since they are getting married soon.
He points accusingly, tired of her high and mighty attitude and his need to please her. Disgusted, she wonders why she must marry such a worthless man.
A memory surfaces of her joyfully embracing a different blonde man in a blue cape.
Her expression turns cold as she vows to make her rival regret surviving the disinheritance. As Spencer walks away, she shouts again for the rude man to leave. He smirks, recalling how she used to flirt shamelessly with Count Castle. The scene shifts to Marquise Burton, a stern-looking representative of the House of Lords. Spencer appears before the Marquis, who confirms that he summoned him.
The Marquis inquires about Spencer's progress with Princess Lila.
He advises his son that persistence will eventually win her over. Spencer proudly reports that he proposed holding the wedding ceremony within the year. Satisfied, the Marquis agrees to inform the king of the news.
He privately reflects on the wisdom of having charmed the king early on.
The Marquis muses that the loyal Cassell is a suitable match for Lady Sarah Neal. He is confident Cassell will devote himself to finding a way to break the curse. The plot is revealed: marry Sarah Neal to Castle and exile them, forcing Lila to marry Spencer. The ultimate goal is for the Burton family to eventually claim the crown. He believes exiling Sarah Neal will convince the public that Lila should inherit the throne. A memory shows a younger, happier Layla in a beautiful wedding gown. The scene transitions to Castle walking alone through a grand hall. A voice calls out Master Castle, and he stops, turning his head. A smiling Layla greets him warmly. Cassell formally apologizes for his long absence as Layla asks if he's already leaving. He confirms that his business with His Majesty is finished. Layla asks him to stay,
inviting him for tea since it has been a while. He bluntly rejects her invitation, stating he has other plans and calling for his carriage. Her smile fades as she thinks with frustration, "Are you rejecting me again?" In a flashback, she recalls interacting with Castle, who remains polite but distant. She thinks about how he always maintained his manners, but never truly let his guard down. She remembers how everyone else fawns over her, yet he chose to dance with another. The memory focuses on the veiled woman, Sarah Neal, whom Castle chose. Layla watches from afar as Castle and the veiled Sarah Neal dance together. Her face flushes with jealousy and humiliation. Castle, however, shares a gentle smile with his dance partner. A brief memory flashes of a different woman in a yellow dress, laughing happily. Layla reflects on a life where she feels everything has been taken from her. Her green eye gleams with resentment and a burning desire for revenge. In the grand hall, Lila approaches Castle with a determined look. He looks back at her, his expression stoic and unreadable. Hesitating for a moment, Lila quietly says, "Well..." She suddenly throws her arms around him, crying out his name in desperation. A shocked Castle questions Princess Layla, who confesses she doesn't want her marriage. She presses herself against him, her face filled with sorrowful pleading. Her expression shifts to one of subtle, calculated resolve. Castle listens intently as she explains that's why she is here. She looks up at him, earnestly asking him to listen to her worries. The scene changes to a bedroom where a maid calls for Lady Sarah Neal. The concerned maid notes that it is already noon. Leaning over the bed, she gently suggests that her lady should get up. Discovering Sarah Neal has a terrible fever, the maid panics and rushes to call a doctor. Sarah Neal sits up in pain, thinking her head hurts and that something is definitely wrong. A blurry, traumatic memory of a man and a falling woman flashes through her mind. Another memory shows her collapsed on the floor, weak and sweating. The memory continues with a man grabbing her forcefully. Stumbling out of bed, she thinks with dawning horror, "No way!" She staggers forward, her foot accidentally knocking over a nearby vase. With a crash, the delicate floral vase shatters into pieces on the floor. She covers her mouth in shock, her mind racing as she questions why. Catching her reflection, she recoils in horror, realizing the cursed mark has returned. Unsteadily, she thinks, "No way," as her foot strikes the decorative vase. The vase topples over and shatters loudly on the floor. Staring at her reflection in utter shock, she sees the mark on her face again. Later, Sarah Neal stands alone in a vast and quiet library. She holds the magic stone, its blue light fading in her hands. She grimly realizes the stone's effect was only temporary. The curse remains. Determined, she turns to a desk, resolving to find another solution. She pulls out a book, thinking it has been a while since she researched curses. Her eyes widen slightly as she finds a particular passage of interest. She learns that as a price, the curse also affects the caster, who must bear a similar scar. She bows her head, wondering how she could possibly find such a person. With a thoughtful touch to her veil, she reasons they would never show it willingly. A realization strikes her. They might be using magic stones to hide it. A brown-haired man asks if she suspects someone cursed her. Sarah Neal stands across the room from him and calmly confirms his suspicion. He leans against the wall, crossing his arms as he considers the information. Turning to her, he asks if she has anyone in mind. Her thoughts turn to a memory of a man meeting with a cloaked figure. A subordinate reports his investigation revealed the man was just a commoner. Sarah Neal quietly repeats the word commoner, pondering its meaning. The brown-haired man deduces the commoner was likely a proxy for someone else. He concludes the true culprit must have immense wealth, like royalty or a minister.
Sereniel declares they must go to the royal palace to investigate immediately.
The man cautions her, stating they need a pretext to snoop around the palace.
Agreeing, she adds that having a noble escort would help their cause.
An older man with glasses, Evans, reacts with shock, asking if she wants him to go now. Sereniel and the brown-haired man stand ready, their plan set. She looks at Evans and tells him he's the only one she can rely on for this. Sereniel begs for help, promising her protection in return.
She thanks a worried Evans for agreeing to her plan.
The brown-haired man assures her that with Castle away, this is their chance.
The scene shifts to the grand, sunlit exterior of the royal palace.
Inside, the palace grounds are visible through a large arched window. A maid with braided hair advises someone to act as they always do. She looks aside, thinking to herself that nothing seems to have changed. Suddenly, her green eye widens as she notices something unexpected. She sees Castle walking outside with a blonde woman clinging to his arm. She wonders if Castle has been at the royal palace the entire time. Seeing the woman's joyful expression, she questions why he is with Lila. The maid realizes with dread that this was not supposed to happen. Watching them from the darkened hall, she thinks it cannot be true.
Layla holds Castle's arm, asking him about the victory celebration party. The maid lowers her head, a sense of defeat washing over her.
A close-up highlights the ornate brooch on Layla's light blue dress. Castle states coolly that her presence would mean a lot to him. From a distance, the maid continues to watch their tense conversation. A memory shows Castle and Layla looking like a perfect couple. Back in the present, Castle pulls his arm away from Layla's grasp. The maid watches the scene unfold with a somber expression. Her worried gaze remains fixed on the couple outside. She thinks Cassell's name, her expression filled with shock and confusion. Hurt, Layla asks Castle why he would say such a thing to her. She looks up at him with a blush, asking if he isn't on her side. With a hand on her chest, she says she thought he would understand her feelings. Castle coldly questions why he would ever understand her feelings. Layla smiles slyly, retorting that the reason should be obvious. She accuses him of marrying her sister out of pity and obligation, not love. With a malicious grin, she declares that no one could love someone so cursed.
The watching maid thinks desperately for her to stop.
Castle looks down at Layla and states firmly, "I love my wife." Stunned into silence, Layla can only question if he truly loves her. She recovers with a cruel smirk, asking how long that will last. Turning her back on him, she tells him to deliver a message to her sister. She says she is looking forward to seeing her sister's beautiful face at the party. Storming off, Layla furiously shrubs the maid out of her path. Castle and the maid watch her departure with stern expressions. As Castle walks away, the maid watches him leave from the window. The group freezes in shock as Carswell heads directly toward them. The brown-haired man urgently whispers, "Lady Sereniel," revealing the maid's identity. Castle greets Sir Evans, who nervously makes an excuse about a forgotten document. Castle listens to the excuse, his expression unreadable as he accepts it. His gaze shifts past Evans, and he asks, who is accompanying him? Panicked, Sereniel realizes they are about to be exposed. She hides behind the brown-haired man, offering a deep, silent apology. The brown-haired man smoothly covers for her, claiming she is just shy.
Cassell seems to accept the explanation without further question.
The brown-haired man quickly announces that they will be leaving now. As Castle departs, the man tells Sereniel they should return to the mansion. Sereniel, disguised as a maid, reluctantly agrees, "You're right." Later, she stands alone on a dark balcony, lost in thought. She reflects that she knew Cassell was kind but had dismissed it as mere courtesy. Clenching the railing, she realizes his kindness was entirely genuine. A faint memory of Cassel's gentle smile flashes in her mind. Her expression softens with a sad understanding. Leaning against the pillar, she berates herself for being a fool. A voice suddenly finds her in the dark, revealing Cassel's presence.
Startled, she turns to face him, surprised by his unexpected return home.
Cassel looks at her with earnest concern, admitting he was worried.
He explains that he has been staying at the royal palace for the past few days. While there, he says he came to a painful realization about how lonely she must have been. Confused by his words, Serenil asks what he means.
He reveals that at the palace, it was as if she didn't exist. Even His Majesty never once mentioned her name.
Furthermore, he adds that all the nobles simply pretended she wasn't there. Staring at a royal family portrait, he concludes it was as if she had been completely erased.
He places a hand over his heart and offers her a sincere apology. Overwhelmed by his empathy, Serenil begins to cry. Cassel gently leans in, kissing her under the bright moonlight.
He pulls her into a tight embrace as she asks him not to apologize.
Smiling tenderly, she gently caresses his cheek. He effortlessly lifts her into his arms, carrying her inside.
Inside, they share another sweet, lingering kiss.
He looks at her with flushed desire, breathing her name.
Serenil denies trying to tease him, but he warns her that he won't be able to hold back. Turning away, he removes his shirt, assuring her she can be as loud as she wants. He faces her, his scarred, muscular physique revealed, adding that he dismissed the servants.
He pulls her close, embracing her tenderly from behind.
Nuzzling her neck, he playfully asks if Selene wants him to prepare a bath. She clings to him, asking him to stay with her a little longer. Calling her a spoiled brat, Cassel kisses her hand while she asks if he hates her for it.
He looks at her with deep affection, admitting he now realizes all her feelings are true.
She looks up at him with a happy, blushing expression. They share a passionate embrace in the moonlit room. The next day, sunlight illuminates the grand mansion. Outside, a magnificent white and gold carriage awaits. Cassel, now dressed in a formal white suit, is approached by a servant and asks for Seren. An older butler watches them, remarking on how quickly the day of the return party has arrived.
Sereniel stands ready inside, her face hidden behind an elegant black lace veil.
Outside, Cassel waits, his expression determined as someone calls his name. Sereniel gracefully appears, apologizing for the delay. Struck by her appearance, Cassel can only say her name. He averts his gaze slightly, telling her she looks beautiful. Sereniel looks down, a hint of sadness in her posture. He extends his hand, formally asking her to take it. Through the veil, her eyes show a steely resolve. The scene shifts to an aerial view of the vast and imposing royal palace. As they arrive at the grand entrance, Cassel invites her to go inside. He notices her demeanor and asks if she is all right, commenting that she looks pale. Facing the imposing doors, she quietly wonders to herself if she will be okay. Serenil notes it has been some time since she stood before so many people. Cassel smiles warmly, promising no one will make her feel uneasy today. Taking her hand, he reassures her that he is by her side. A blush rises on her cheek as she looks at him, moved. He proudly escorts her into the grand, brightly lit ballroom. As they approach the royal balcony, Cassel formally greets His Majesty. The king, wearing his crown, expresses his gladness that they have returned safely. Later, Cassel and Serenil stand opposite each other on the ballroom floor. He gently speaks her name, and she softly asks what it is. He reminisces about when they danced at her coming-of-age ceremony. He admits it was their first dance, and that he thought it would be their last. They stand facing one another, a quiet distance between them. He calls her name again, his voice filled with gentle longing. With a charming smile, he formally extends his hand for a dance.
She smiles brightly, taking his hand and offering to lead. He graciously accepts, telling her to please do so. They come together in a graceful embrace, beginning their dance.
As they move, she finds the moment strange and surreal.
They twirl elegantly across the floor, a vision among the other dancers.
She looks up at him with a serene, happy smile.
She thinks to herself that in a room full of people, she sees only him.
The world around them fades into a golden glow as they dance. The dance concludes as he bows and gently kisses her gloved hand. Onlookers gossip amongst themselves, wondering about Mrs. Sarah Neal.
The couple stands together, a picture of elegance and poise. A blonde woman in pink remarks that Serenial's matching dress caught her eye instantly.
The blonde woman glares at Siri Neal with a cold, unconcealed envy. Sarah Neal feels that the blissful moment is like a dream. The blonde woman bitterly thinks that the outfit suits her sister better. Her thoughts turn dark as she angrily questions why Sarah Neal has no bruises. The blonde woman aggressively grabs Sarah Neal, demanding she remove her veil.
Sarah Neal catches her wrist, shocked into silence by the sudden assault.
Castle intervenes, placing a hand on Sarah Neal's shoulder and asking if she is okay. He suggests they step outside to get away from the scene.
The blonde woman desperately calls out to Sir Castle, claiming her sister's bruises have suspiciously vanished.
Castle turns back, coldly warning her to stop and never touch Sarah Neal again.
He delivers a final threat, stating he will not turn a blind eye next time.
The stunned blonde woman trembles, wondering what is happening.
Outside, Serenial thanks Castle, who humbly replies he only did his duty.
Castle turns to leave, offering to get something to clean her with.
Alone, Sarah Neal reflects on the close call, realizing Cassell's intervention saved her.
She suspects the curse caster is in the palace and resolves to hide her recovery.
Suddenly, an arrow silently cuts through the night air.
Thwack! The arrow embeds itself in the bench right beside her head, startling her.
She stares at the arrow, shocked and wondering what it is.
With trembling hands, she removes a note tied to the arrow's shaft. The note warns her not to investigate the curse, or those around her will pay. She realizes it's a threat letter.
She sits alone on the bench, reading the ominous first line of the threat.
As she reads the final warning, her expression hardens with resolve. The memory of Castle's gentle smile flashes in her mind, now shadowed by the new threat against him. Sarah Neal sits alone, vowing not to stop her investigation.
Castle approaches her, offering a cloth and calling her Seren. He gently takes her hand, warning that she'll catch a cold. She turns away from him with a pained expression.
Serenial coldly tells him that her health shouldn't be his concern.
A worried Castle asks her what has happened.
Pulling her hand away, she reminds him their relationship ends after the party.
As she walks off, she states that once the party is over,
they will begin their formal divorce, leaving a stunned Cassell to call after her.
In a flashback, she tells herself that this is for the best.
Her resolve is firm, believing this is the only way to protect him. She braces herself, prepared for him to hate her for this decision.
Later, Aiden serves a hooded Serenial a meal at a tavern.
He worries aloud, asking if Miss Serenial is truly okay with her decision. Aiden wonders if the Count is the one responsible for her distress. When she questions him, he explains Castle is always involved when she's upset.
She tries to deny it, but he pleads with her not to push him away.
He asks what happened at the party, prompting her to reveal she received a threat letter. Shocked, he listens as she explains the letter threatens those around her. She then asks him to back off for his own safety.
Aiden stands abruptly, telling her not to underestimate him. He declares that the threat only makes him more determined to find the culprit.
He reminds her of his promise to protect her from all danger.
Sereniel smiles warmly, thinking she's found a fine apprentice.
Her praise leaves Aiden feeling honored. She offers him a sincere thank you for his unwavering support. Aiden looks away, flustered by her gratitude. Sereniel returns to the mansion, the sound of a door echoing from the staircase. A maid rushes to meet her, worriedly exclaiming that she is late. Sereniel calmly asks the maid what has her so concerned. The maid stands nervously before her, unable to answer. Sereniel's gaze drifts past the maid as she wonders if Cassel is drinking.
A brief scene confirms her suspicion. Cassel is drinking at a party.
She decides to check on him and dismisses the maid for the night. She hesitates, worried she is the reason for his suffering. Lost in thought, she questions if she has any right to comfort him. Deciding it's better to leave him be, she reaches for a door. But before she can turn away, Cassel pulls her into a sudden embrace. Startled by his sudden appearance, she cries out his name.
Cassel looks down at her, noting she's been spending time with Aiden.
She tells him he's had too much to drink and suggests they talk tomorrow. With tears in his eyes, Cassel desperately asks if she is going to leave him. She looks up at him, shocked to see him in such a vulnerable state. As she stares at him, a heartbreaking realization dawns on her. She sees a tear fall from his eye and realizes he's crying.
He begs her to tell him it's a lie and that she will stay.
Burying his face in her shoulder, he begins a pained confession. He admits he can't live without her, leaving Sereniel stunned. Her eyes harden with resolve. She tells herself she cannot falter. But as he clings to her, she feels her determination begin to waver. She whispers Cassel's name during their kiss. Holding his face, Sereniel asks him to promise to believe everything she says. Visibly moved, Cassel readily agrees, saying, "Of course." With her decision made, Sereniel says, "Well then." She asks if he is now ready to listen to her story. She begins her tale, confessing to Cassel everything she has experienced. She reveals how the curse was temporarily lifted by a magic stone. She recounts the painful memory of the curse returning in full force. She admits she was secretly pursuing the culprit behind his back. Cassel reacts in shock, learning that she received a threat letter. Sereniel explains she pushed him away, afraid he would be put in danger. Concluding her story, she admits she was avoiding him, prompting a sincere apology from Cassel. He bows his head, apologizing for dragging Seren into this problem. He gently takes her hand in his. Sitting beside her, he tells her not to bear her burdens alone. He looks at her tenderly, urging her to rely on him in times of trouble. Touched by his words, Sereniel thinks his name with deep emotion. A close-up of her eye reveals her thought. "I'm all ready." They share a warm embrace as she softly agrees. As he kisses her forehead, she thinks how grateful she is for him. Later, as a maid helps her dress, she feels certain she made the right choice. She reflects that she finally had a good night's sleep. In bed, Cassel assures her he will increase the guards and investigate himself, telling her to rest before kissing her. A maid suddenly rushes in, urgently calling for the madam. Sereniel looks up as the maid announces the arrival of a visitor. Sereniel sits for tea on the patio with a brown-haired woman. The woman, Countess Barton, formally greets Sereniel as the new countess. Sereniel asks the countess why she has arrived so early. Countess Barton apologizes, explaining she's wanted to speak with her since the party. The countess remarks on how much the mansion's atmosphere has changed. To tell the truth, she says, she was on good terms with the previous countess. Sereniel listens with a neutral expression, questioning the claim. The countess expresses her hope to build a similarly strong friendship. She reveals that she is planning a tea party at her own mansion. As a maid presents a formal invitation, the countess extends it to Sereniel. Sereniel politely defers, asking to consult her husband first. The Countess graciously accepts, hoping for a positive response. Sereniel agrees non-committally that she will consider the invitation. Countess Barton thanks her for her time as she prepares to depart. As Sereniel bids her farewell, the Countess says she will await her reply. Watching them leave, Sereniel finds it hard to believe their supposed close friendship. Standing beside her, Aiden scoffs at the rudeness of an unannounced visit. He calls out to Madame Sereniel with concern. The Countess is helped into her grand carriage by a servant. A sudden, shocking realization hits Sereniel. The servant is the one who collected the magic stones.
She stares in horror, questioning why Marquis Burton's servants would be involved.
Back inside, she processes the terrible implication that Marquis Burton bought the stones. Aiden, now wearing glasses, states that this development makes everything worse.
He explains the Marquis is a powerful noble whose influence is too great to ignore.
Sereniel looks down grimly, stating that she is well aware of the danger. Aiden warns that they must be careful with Marquis Burton or she will be in danger. He looks at her with grave concern.
He starts to explain that Marquis Burton is not an easy person to deal with.
Later, Sereniel strolls through the garden with a maid. The maid worries that the madam has been pushing herself too hard lately. Sereniel smiles faintly, admitting she's had a lot on her mind. Insisting she rest, the maid is thanked by Sereniel, who calls her Ebony. Sereniel looks out over the estate's lake. She and Ebony are startled to find several of Cassell's shirtless subordinates by the water.
Ebony explains the men often cool off in the lake after training.
She discreetly asks if Sereniel wants her to tell them to stop. A shirtless Cassell suddenly appears, calling out to Seren. He steps closer, asking her why she is here. He wonders aloud if she is out for a stroll. She apologizes, explaining she didn't realize they were on a break. Leaning in, he playfully asks if her blushing is from the heat. He flashes her a charming, teasing smile. He pulls her closer as she lets out a small protest. Flustered, she stammers that she was just a bit surprised. He whispers that her flustered expression makes him want to tease her more. She reminds him others are watching, but he confidently says he knows. He tells her their fatigue vanished the moment they saw her. Holding her hand, he asks her to visit them more often. Watching from afar, one of the men and Ebony wonder when the couple became so close. Elsewhere, a glass shatters as someone angrily demands where an item is. A man kneels before the Marquis, begging for another chance. The Marquis coldly refuses, calling the man useless. The Marquis slams his fist on a desk, impatiently wondering how long he must wait. A hooded figure enters, offering a report to the Marquis. The figure reports that they have tailed Evans and contacted Sereniel. After hearing they are wary, the figure asks how to get rid of them. The Marquis dismisses someone as a useless, clever guy. He orders the agent to continue surveillance and await instructions. The Marquis clasps his hands, his thoughts fixed on Sereniel Graham. With a sinister grin, he looks forward to seeing her face get cursed. At a tea party, a woman presents a tray of sweets. A guest asks the Countess how she has been doing. The Countess explains she's been busy with matters in her territory. Her guest expresses sympathy, while a maid suggests she take a break. Suddenly, the maid collapses in front of the startled Countess. The Countess rushes to the fallen maid's side, asking if she's all right. The scene shifts to a grand mansion under a dark night sky. The Marquis thinks to himself what an eyesore a certain woman is. His mind flashes back to a younger Sereniel Graham. He recalls her as an intelligent person who could see people's true nature. He reflects that she had the potential to become the country's leader. He remembers his original plan was for her to seize power from the royal family. A memory shows her smiling happily beside a young blonde man. Another memory surfaces of a stern-looking brown-haired boy. The Marquis decides he must find another way to achieve his goals. He recalls learning that the princess possessed strong powers at a crucial moment. In his memory, he saw this power as a divine opportunity. He remembers placing a debilitating curse on Princess Serenil. This act, he recalls, created a small rift in the royal family. The once close Graham family began to fracture. He remembers planting seeds of doubt, suggesting Serenil dabbled in black magic. He reflects on how surprisingly intelligent the young lady was. His thoughts return to his primary ambition, securing the throne. He recalls the woman's disbelief as he began weaving his lie. He sold a false story of Lady Serenil's long-held jealousy toward Lady Lila. He points out Lila's birth date and blonde hair to insinuate a greater destiny. He believed Serenil feared her chosen sister would usurp her place in the world. In the present, the Marquis frets that his plans have gone awry. He clutches his chest as the curse's side effects spread through his own body. Opening a chest, he realizes the magic stone fragments are no longer enough to heal him. He examines a glowing crystal, his expression grim and desperate. The scene shifts to a grand, sunlit mansion. Serenil and Castle arrive, and she politely expresses her honor at being invited. A maid politely gestures for the esteemed guests to follow her inside. The maid informs Castle that another attendant will escort him as his wife is waiting. Castle asks Seren if she will be all right on her own. She reassures him. He insists she call for him immediately if anything happens. They share a tender moment, holding hands as the maid watches. The maid observes them with a subtle, knowing look. Serenil enters a large, ornate gazebo to join two other women. One of the ladies warmly greets the Countess, complimenting her stunning dress. The other expresses her worry over Serenil's recent absence and invites her to sit. Serenil is surprised by the warmth of their welcome. She admits she's worried about being rude after so long away from social gatherings. Her host insists she must then be invited to more parties. A sudden, dark feeling washes over Serenil, identical to when her curse was first cast. Kya! A woman screams in terror, asking if it's a curse and calling for a doctor. The other guests watch in horror, wondering if the Countess's curse has moved. Kya! A woman screams again, panicking about a curse and calling for a doctor. Another woman reacts in disbelief, questioning if the Countess's curse just spread. Kneeling by the collapsed maid, Serenil thinks that curses are not supposed to spread. She studies the victim, noting that the symptoms are familiar. She realizes with horror that they are just like her own when she was cursed. The other ladies panic, one nervously asking if they are also in danger. The women scramble away from the scene, calling for a doctor for the Marchioness. Serenil's eyes widen as she begins to understand the situation. She stands to address the others, insisting there's a misunderstanding. The host smiles cruelly, asking who would possibly believe Serenil now. Serenil is speechless, realizing she has been deliberately framed. The woman relishes the moment, thinking how horrifying this must be for Serenil. Serenil forcefully denies the accusation, declaring she has neither motive nor power. The woman counters, pointing out Serenil chose this particular party to attend. She accuses Serenil of plotting to transfer the curse and share her humiliation. Frozen in shock, Serenil faces the final, damning question of the setup. As the other women whisper, Serenil realizes the maid's collapse is no coincidence. She remembers the party host's words, awaiting her favorable reply. Looking at the scene before her, Serenil concludes it was all a trap. She understands the entire event was calculated to frame her and ensure her isolation. She stares down at the unconscious maid, wondering what is happening. Just then, Castle arrives on the scene, asking about the commotion. Seeing him, Cyraniel worries that he too will misunderstand the damning situation.
The host quickly explains that the maid collapsed after bumping into the countess, implying the curse spread.
Cyraniel desperately pleads with Castle, hoping he won't believe the lie. To her surprise, Cassel kneels beside her and gently places his hands on her shoulders.
His first concern is for her, asking if she is hurt. She quietly says she is fine.
He smiles softly, expressing his relief that she is unharmed. She is moved, realizing with astonishment that he completely trusts her.
The host interrupts, warning Castle to stay away lest the curse spread to him. Standing protectively beside Cyraniel, Castle coldly demands proof for her accusation. He threatens to summon a priest, warning the woman to be prepared for the consequences of a false claim.
The flustered host begins to stammer, unable to respond to his challenge.
Suddenly, the Marquis arrives, coolly inquiring about the impolite commotion that occurred in his absence. He watches the scene unfold with a subtle, sinister smile. Cyraniel announces that they will be leaving, and the Marquis calmly agrees it cannot be helped. He then formally thanks the Countess for attending his party. With a veiled insult, he hopes they can meet again when she is in good health. Later, in their carriage, Cyraniel thanks a surprised Castle. She explains her gratitude, telling him she's thankful he defended her without any doubt. He replies that of course he would, no matter the circumstances. Looking at her with conviction, he says, "I know you're not the type of person to harm people, Serene." Visibly moved by his faith, she tells him how happy she is to hear him say that. She clenches her hands in her lap, marveling at the depth of his trust in her. His unwavering support makes her feel she can finally show him her true self. She tells him there is something important she wants to discuss when they return home. The scene transitions to their grand mansion under the starry night sky.
Cyraniel stands alone on a balcony, waiting pensively.
Castle, now in a casual white shirt, appears in the doorway behind her. He gently warns her that she will catch a cold if she stays outside. She turns to him, softly speaking his name. Joining her on the balcony, he reminds her that she had something she wanted to tell him.
She confirms, explaining that their conversation in the carriage gave her the courage to speak now.
She begins by reminding him of their prior discussion about magic stones breaking the curse. He nods, recalling her words that the effect would only be temporary. Exactly, she confirms, adding that the curse's marks do not vanish completely. With a hint of vulnerability, she admits she has never actually shown him her true face. He listens intently, his expression softening as he says her name. Bolstered by his unconditional trust, she reaches up to remove her veil. The delicate black lace veil floats away from her face. She reveals her face to him, stunningly beautiful and completely unmarked by the curse. Castle stares at her in silent awe as she nervously asks what he thinks. She explains that she is still being targeted by enemies. She still cannot remove her veil in public for the foreseeable future. Without a word, he pulls her into a sudden, tight embrace. He holds her close, whispering that she is truly beautiful. She looks up at him, stunned by his sudden embrace. Holding her close, he gently reassures her that there's nothing to worry about. He gazes into her eyes, promising that his love for her will never fade.
With a radiant smile, she tearfully thanks Castle for his unwavering faith.
She confesses that, thanks to him, she feels as if her heart has grown lighter. He kisses her forehead, telling her it's precisely that quality he fell in love with. The romantic evening transitions to an intimate moment in their bedroom. Cyraniel lies peacefully in bed, looking content. Castle looks on with a calm, determined expression. He pulls her close from behind, holding her in a tender embrace. The next morning, his peaceful moment is interrupted by news that a guest has arrived. Now dressed, Castle sits across from a dark-haired woman in a formal parlor. His guest, a woman in a purple dress, formally greets him as Lord Tildrian. He politely inquires how Marcius Cyanel has been, and she replies that she is well.
The Marchioness apologizes for dropping by so suddenly.
He reassures her it's fine, recalling that she was close with his mother. She confirms that the matter of his mother is precisely why she came. She explains that she grew concerned after hearing he was invited to Marquess Burton's tea party. He asks what she means, and she questions if he was aware of the family's past financial situation.
He admits the situation was severe, but states that his wife has since stabilized their finances.
The Marchioness asks if he didn't find the sudden downturn strange at the time. He explains with frustration that his mother and Hans had kept the truth from him. When he asks why she is bringing it up, she reveals that she found it strange too and investigated it herself.
She recalls how his mother was always surrounded by people who sought to use her.
Castle asks if she knows anything about his mother's acquaintances from that time. In response, the Marchioness places a diary from that era on the table. She tells him everything is written inside as he takes the book. A memory of his mother's smiling face appears as the Marchioness looks on with a grim expression. Another memory shows his mother's hidden sadness, reflecting the Marchioness's worry. As Castle reads, he is struck with horrified guilt, realizing he never noticed his mother's suffering. The Marchioness asks if he knows the Viscount family of Litanian, and he confirms he's heard the name. She explains the Litanian family is facing a similar crisis due to the wife's spending habits, which is affecting the Viscount's reputation. A sudden, chilling thought strikes Castle as he begins to connect the dots. She confirms his unspoken fears, revealing that Mrs. Litanian has been in contact with Marchioness Burton. With a look of grave concern, the Marchioness urges him to be careful. He thinks to himself that the people around his mother were dangerous.
The butler, Hans, joins the conversation, admitting he knew something was wrong, but not the full extent.
He solemnly explains that Castle's mother, Lady Natalia, cared for the family until the very end. With deep regret, he recalls warning Lady Natalia multiple times, but she refused to listen. Castle thoughtfully concludes that his mother must have been influenced by the people around her. The butler adds that Marchioness Burton was the type of person who only invited people to significant events. Sarah Neal, now present, reads from the diary, asking if the two Marquisonesses grew closer after the master's passing. She continues reading, noting that his mother met frequently with Marchioness Cyanel afterward. The diary entry describes how Marchioness Burton gradually began to manipulate Lady Natalia, finding fault in everything she did. She reads that while Marchioness Cyanel offered feigned comfort, Lady Natalia was constantly in tears. Sarah Neal looks up from the diary, concluding that the Marquis's wife was clearly involved as well. Crushed by the revelation, Castle blames himself for not knowing about his mother's suffering. Sarah Neal gently takes his hand, urging him not to blame himself. She moves to sit beside him, offering him her full support and comfort. He calls himself dumb for trusting them, but she reassures him it was their fault for taking advantage of his feelings. She reassures him not to worry, gently squeezing his hand. He looks at her with deep concern as she holds the diary. Looking down, Cassell softly says her name and promises to support her in return. Serenial declares that they must make a plan, refusing to let this continue. In another location, a blonde woman eyes a maid suspiciously, asking what she plans to make her drink as the maid cries out in surprise. The blonde woman, Miss Lila, furiously orders her maids to clean up a spill as one apologizes. Miss Layla glares at her maids, calling them helpless rats and threatening to fire them all. A trembling maid timidly informs Miss Lila that there are guests. Lila looks annoyed, questioning who would visit at this hour. A voice from the grand hall questions why a marquis is arriving so late. A distinguished man with a cane, apologizes to the now formally dressed Lila, addressing her as Princess. The Marquis explains that he came late because he has information she must know. Layla reacts with shock as she reads the document he gave her. The document contains a picture of Sarah Neal and Castle dancing, with a note that things have been better for her. The Marquis credits Sarah Neal's marriage for her improved status, but Lila insists it doesn't change her own right to the throne. The Marquis warns her that public trust in Lord Tildrian is strong, and he has many powerful supporters. Layla lowers her gaze, nervously asking what he's implying. He hints that her chance at the throne isn't zero, causing her to look up in disbelief as he agrees it shouldn't be. With a cunning smile, the Marquis suggests they should strike while the iron is hot. Intrigued, Layla notes he seems to have a plan and asks to hear it. The Marquis hands over a paper explaining that the order of succession cannot be changed. He clarifies that if one successor is unable to inherit, the throne passes to the next in line. Tossing the paper into the fireplace, he reveals his plan. If Sarah Neal's name disappears from the family lineage, then Layla can take the throne for herself. Layla looks over her shoulder with a sly, satisfied smirk. In a flashback, a man with a mustache vows to do anything for her, recalling a moment with a woman and promising she will join their family. Back at the estate, Sarah Neal asks about an oil she distributed, and a maid reports that the servants were all delighted. A butler rushes in, urgently announcing that something terrible has happened. He explains that a strange article has been appearing in the newspaper for the past few days. Sarah Neal reads the headline with dismay, seeing the words, "Love or a Curse." The article's title is revealed, "Love or a Curse, the true face hidden beneath Countess Tildrian's veil." It connects a recent fainting servant incident at Marquis Burton's estate to rumors of Lady Sarah Neal spreading a curse. The article further speculates that Count Tildrian's devotion might be compelled by something beyond love. She realizes with horror that they are accusing her of manipulating Castle. Her expression hardens as she understands the attack against her is not over. Castle enters, telling Sarah Neal he heard what happened. She immediately apologizes, blaming herself for dragging him into the scandal. He gently takes her by the shoulders, asking why she is apologizing. He firmly tells her to discard any thought that she has caused him trouble. Sarah Neal smiles gratefully and thanks him, though he says there's no need. Castle turns serious, stating that they need to decide on their next move. Turning toward the window, Serenial suggests that this situation might actually be an opportunity, surprising him. She declares they will use the public focus on her to their advantage. Her first step, she explains, is to bribe the doctor who treated the collapsed servant. They will pay him to write a report confirming there was no curse, after which she will begin social activities to prove her innocence. Castle agrees, suggesting she attend the royal family's upcoming hunting tournament to make a public appearance. He adds that there is one more issue they need to resolve. Facing her, he brings up the rumor that she has placed a curse on him. He says he cannot stand to have his love for her insulted in such a way. He asks her to go out with him immediately so he can prove the truth of his feelings to everyone. He pulls her close, their faces inches apart in a tender moment. Their gazes lock, a silent and intense connection passing between them. With a blissful smile, Serenial happily accepts his invitation. Out on the town, two women walking down the street notice a couple in the distance. They recognize the couple as Count and Countess Tildrian, walking arm in arm. The onlookers are surprised, noting how happy they look together, which contradicts the rumors they've read. Sarah Neal remarks that this is their first time out together since visiting the tailors. Cassell smiles warmly, asking where she would like to go first. She looks ahead with a determined expression, a plan already in mind. They arrive at a building marked with a distinct shield-like emblem.
Inside, Sarah Neal informs the shopkeeper she's there to pick up a previous order, and he confirms it's ready. The shopkeeper presents her with a small, handsome wooden chest. Castle looks on, asking Serene what she has. She explains it's a gift for him.
He holds the chest with a puzzled look, asking what's inside as it clicks open.
Opening the box, he finds a beautifully crafted dagger nestled inside.
Sarah Neal explains it's for the upcoming hunting tournament, something for him to keep with him.
She confesses that she's realized the people one loves are the ones who should be cherished most.
With a gentle smile, she simply wishes for his safe return.
Visibly moved, Cassel thanks Seren and vows to treasure the gift for the rest of his life.
The scene shifts to the bustling grounds of the annual hunting tournament.
An official announces that the tournament is an important event for strengthening the bonds of nobility.
Mounted on his horse, Cassel looks on seriously as the official declares that their honor is at stake. Sarah Neal watches from the sidelines, her expression calm and serious.
The bright sun shines over the tournament tents, signaling the start of the event. Two riders in formal attire head out from the encampment. A fellow nobleman on horseback approaches Castle, remarking that he seems busy. As she approaches, Cassel turns to her and calls her name Seren. He asks why she's standing out in the sun, and she replies she wanted to see him before he left.
She smiles brightly, observing that he seems to be in a much better mood today. He returns her smile, telling her he can't afford to look shabby in front of her. She replies warmly that all that matters to her is his safe return.
He stands beside his horse, trying to ease her worries by saying it's just a tournament. With a worried gaze, Sarah Neal urges him to take care and prioritize his safety over his rank.
He smiles reassuringly, asking her to please wait for him. Now on his horse, he promises that the very first thing he'll do upon returning is run back to her. The noblemen, Castle among them, ride off under their house banners.
The nobleman from before compliments Castle, stating it's an honor to compete against a war hero.
Castle graciously wishes his rival victory, but the man says such words are wasted on him. The man's demeanor shifts as he looks down, beginning to say something else.
With a condescending smirk, he taunts Castle, asking if his skills have dulled because of his affair. The man and his followers ride past, smirking at their petty insult. As the man flinches, Castle coldly remarks that the weakest dog always barks the loudest. Cassel continues, stating that the man is proving the saying true right now. Flustered, the man stammers an, "Oh, okay," and quickly rides away.
Castle watches him go in silence, his expression unreadable.
Guests of the tournament gather and chat around a long, lavishly prepared banquet table. Sirenial sips her drink, thinking to herself that she's had a bad feeling for a while.
Her eyes narrow slightly as she senses an approaching presence.
Layla appears with a cheerful smile, calling Sarah Neal's sister and feigning surprise at seeing her.
Sirenial gives her a cold, hard stare, bluntly asking what she wants.
Layla smiles smugly, saying she reads the newspapers wholeheartedly.
Sirenial listens with a calm expression, simply saying, "I see."
Layla taunts her, asking why her expression remains unchanged. Sirenial dismisses the question, stating she has no time for baseless rumors.
She adds that she's only curious about the rumor's source.
Layla grows defensive, asking if Sirenial is doubting her. Turning her back, Sirenial vows to protect those special to her. She declares that she already knows who the real threat is.
Layla smirks, cryptically warning Sirenial that she's oblivious to what's about to happen today. Elsewhere in the forest, Castle finds it strange that he can't find any game.
A sudden rustle startles him in his horse.
He turns, thinking he senses small animals nearby.
His eyes widen in alarm as he recognizes the presence.
It's not a monster, he realizes with surprise.
A man with a bow emerges from the woods.
Castle assesses the stranger, noting he looks like an aristocrat, but is hiding without a horse.
He confronts the man, asking what he is doing there. Suddenly, the man lunges, and two cloaked figures ambush Castle. Pinned to the ground, Kasa demands to know who sent them, but the man refuses to answer. The attacker aims a crossbow, sneering that Castle will die soon anyway. Back at the tournament, a man urgently searches for Countess Sereniel. Sereniel calmly appears and asks what has happened. The man reports that Sir Cassel has not returned from the hunt, and the search has been fruitless. He adds that all traces of Castle have vanished within the forest. The man asks if she is all right as she stumbles back in shock. He tries to reassure her, promising they will continue the search. Sereniel declares with resolve that she must see for herself. She and the men venture into the dense forest. Her hand trembles as she recognizes a horse among the flowers. She confirms it's Castle's horse, realizing this is no coincidence. She knows she must remain calm, despite her desire to find him. A memory of Castle holding her close surfaces. His gentle, reassuring smile fills her thoughts. She believes with conviction that he would never leave her. Steeling herself, she resolves to stay calm and carefully observe everything. She finds blood spattered on a tree, clear signs of a struggle. Her only comfort is that the amount of blood is small. She deduces that his injuries are likely not fatal. She orders the search party to split up and search from where his tracks disappeared. A nobleman on horseback remarks that the situation is a problem. With a condescending smile, he asks why they should follow her orders. He finds it strange that a person is missing, yet she seems unconcerned. He questions how someone could vanish unnoticed during the tournament. Sereniel turns to him sharply, asking what he is implying. He laughs it off, apologizing while noting how surprisingly calm she is. He mockingly agrees to follow her orders since she is the lady. On horseback, a brown-haired man suggests they look for him. As dusk falls, Sereniel worries about the approaching darkness. A woman in a suit shouts that she has found some footprints. The brown-haired man believes the tracks belong to the Count and urges them to hurry. The search party stops as they come upon a glowing Sereniel. Sereniel eyes someone with suspicion, finding him untrustworthy. She analyzes the tracks, thinking the clean marks were left intentionally. She deduces no one being chased would leave such a steady trail. Suspecting Sir Spencer of misdirection, the brown-haired man leads everyone onward. Sereniel marvels at the complexity of the deceptive plan. Realizing she can't trust anyone, she stands apart from the search party. She decides to break away from the group and act on her own. Turning away, she resolves to head in the opposite direction of the tracks. She sends a desperate prayer for Castle's safety. With a look of deep concern, she hurries through the woods. She suddenly stops, sensing a familiar presence nearby before spotting an injured man. Finding Castle wounded and leaning against a tree, she cries out his name. The sun sets quietly over the distant mountains. At a hunting camp, men boast about their catches, comparing a stag and a hawk. The brown-haired man joins the boasting, claiming he caught a black wolf. Another man listens in awe, impressed by the claim. The brown-haired man finds it strange that everyone has already returned from the hunt. Sereniel stands alone at the edge of the camp, waiting patiently. A man looks around, asking if anyone has seen Sir Castle. Another man realizes he hasn't, wondering if Castel is still in the forest. The brown-haired man scoffs, mocking Kessel for possibly getting lost or failing to catch prey. Back in the forest, Sereniel rushes to Castle's side, asking if he's okay. She supports the injured Castle, pleading for him to hold on. Seeing the blood soaking his clothes, she realizes his wounds are severe. She looks at him with anguish, asking who attacked him. She presses her hands to his wound, vowing to stop the bleeding. Weakly, Castle tells Seren to leave him and save herself. He urgently warns her that their enemy might still be lurking nearby. Kneeling before him, Serenil quietly refuses to leave him. She tearfully begs him not to talk about being left behind. Overwhelmed, she confesses how anxious she was while she was alone. A single tear falls from her eye as she looks down.
Cassel gently holds her, softly saying her name.
He grimaces in pain, apologizing for not considering her feelings. He admits that he didn't want her to see him in such a state. He offers a weak smile, telling Serene that she is the reason he survived.
Confused, she questions him, and he reveals it was because of the dagger she gave him.
Holding the bloody dagger, he explains he instinctively grabbed it when attacked. Touched, she realizes he kept it with him, and he confirms he did because it was from her. He smiles warmly, calling her his goddess of luck.
Serenil chides him for joking at a time like this, and he apologizes with a laugh.
She tells him she will get help and to wait there, and he agrees. Serenil runs through the camp, shouting that the Count is severely injured. Standing with her arms crossed, a blonde woman in a pink dress scoffs at the commotion. Serenil spots the woman and recognizes her with a start, thinking, "So you were here, Lila." Lila greets a blood-stained Serenil, calling her Big Sister. She feigns relief, stating she's glad the Count is fine. Layla mockingly points out the blood, offering to lend Serenil a dress. As Layla taunts her, Serenil calmly thinks how predictable she is. Surprised by the silent rebuke, Lila asks what she said. Serenil questions Lila's lack of sadness over Castle almost dying. Lila dismisses it, saying a mere stab wound wouldn't kill a hero. Serenil agrees, stating she's also glad Castle is strong. Layla finds the situation strange, catching Serenil's attention. Serenil springs her trap, noting she never mentioned a sword. Flustered, Layla stammers out a lie about a hunting accident. Serenil counters, questioning why a bow would be used for a beast. Layla defensively claims ignorance and accuses Serenil of baseless attacks. She defiantly asks Serenil if she has any evidence. Layla laughs mockingly at Serenil's serious expression. Layla condescendingly reminds Serenil of her place as a countess, but Serenil retorts, warning her about the punishment for accusing a royal intimate without proof. Serenil confidently assures her that the truth will be revealed. Layla smiles sweetly, reminding her that perjury is a crime. She grabs Serenil's wrist, warning her about the coming punishment. Serenil pulls her hand away, telling Lila to brace herself. Turning her back, Serenil vows not to pull her punches anymore. The scene transitions to a grand mansion at night. Inside, Serenil sits beside the bed of an injured Castle. Castle weakly calls out to her, addressing her as Madam. Serenil learns that Lord Aiden has brought Marquis Burton's Chamberlain. On a dark staircase, a voiceover reveals a clue to the Marquise's plans. A brown-haired man reports to Serenil that they caught the troublesome Chamberlain. Serenil thoughtfully processes the crucial new information. A bound man is forced onto his knees before them. The captured man desperately begs to be untied, pleading his innocence. The brown-haired man questions him, asking why he tried to run. Serenil observes that the scars on his cheek weren't from his captor. She notices he's covered in wounds all over his body. Serenil orders the man to be untied, surprising her ally. She instructs them to treat his wounds and bring him inside. Later, at a table, the Chamberlain claims he was just running errands. He desperately pleads with Serenil, insisting he knows nothing. Serenil gently assures him that they don't mean him any harm. She explains she only wants to ask about Marquis Burton. She offers help, revealing she knows who inflicted his wounds. The Chamberlain looks up, shocked by her offer. Serenil promises to keep his words secret and guarantee his safety from the Marquis. She also offers him a new, safe life in the Empire. Overwhelmed, the Chamberlain timidly asks if she'll really protect him.
He confesses that the Marquis held his family hostage, forcing him to buy countless magic stones.
He reveals he once saw the Marquis at dawn, muttering while holding something.
He vividly recalls peeking through the Marquis's doorway.
He saw the magic stone instantly heal a bruise on the Marquis's hand.
The Chamberlain describes the strange sight as if it were a ritual.
Realizing the Marquis shares her curse, Serenil thanks him for the truth. Her eyes narrow with resolve, thinking she must devise another plan.
Serenil sits across from the Chamberlain, asking if there's anything else. The nervous Chamberlain begins to confess something he accidentally overheard.
She listens intently as he prepares to speak.
He reveals the Marquis instructed him to pour a liquid into a glass. A memory shows a blonde man watching the Marquis hold a drink. Serenil realizes the Marquis drugged Cassel's glass with an aphrodisiac.
Covering her face, she hears a voice, glad she figured it out.
The scene transitions to a grand mansion under a full moon.
A voice calls out asking if Seren is still awake.
Cassel appears in a white robe, saying her name.
Serenil, now in a nightgown, tells him she has new information.
She looks at him with a serious expression.
Stunned by her words, Cassel gasps, "No way!" He explains that her revelation sparked a sudden thought.
Serenil laments that his life would be better if not for the drugged wine.
Leaning close, he replies that even without the wine, his feelings are the same.
He tenderly holds her face and kisses her. Her eye widens in complete surprise. Cassel pulls back slightly, his expression intense.
He whispers that now he can have her all to himself.
He moves in to kiss her neck, overwhelming her senses.
Flustered, Serenil clutches at her nightgown.
She lets out a sharp, breathless sigh.
Overwhelmed with emotion, she covers her mouth.
He suddenly sweeps her into his arms as she cries out, "Ah!" Holding her close, he asks her to see the look in his eyes. With a tear in his eye, he decides it's better to see for himself.
He carries her effortlessly, her legs wrapped around him.
They share a tender, loving embrace. They share a gentle, lingering kiss. The kiss deepens with passion. A tear escapes his eye as he looks at her, overcome.
He whispers that she is so beautiful.
Blushing, he admits how good it feels to be with her.
Panically, Serenil asks what they'll do if she becomes pregnant. He looks at her with deep longing, saying he wants her to bear his children.
Shocked, she contemplates the idea of having children with Cassel. She realizes the depth of his feelings for her.
As she stares at his bare chest, she admits she'd never considered children before.
He leans down toward her with purpose.
She decides that with him, everything will be okay.
Crying tears of joy, she tells him she's happy to be part of his future.
They hold each other close, gazing into each other's eyes.
The view from the window shows them moving to the bed. The next morning, she awakens to Cassel's soft voice.
Lying beside her, he apologizes for being too rough.
He gently tells her not to apologize.
Blushing, she shyly admits that it felt very good for her too.
She suggests he take a day off, but he firmly refuses.
Serenil smiles, declaring she has found a way to get revenge.
The blonde-haired man listens with a somber expression.
Now fully dressed, she stands pensively near a large window.
She promises that the day of her plan will be unforgettable. The blonde-haired man crosses his arms, agreeing it's the best opportunity. With cold determination, she calls it the perfect stage for their despair.
He warns her that if this plan fails, she won't escape unharmed. She asks him to lend her his strength despite the risks.
He gently takes her hand, his expression softening as he agrees. The scene shifts to the grand exterior of a cathedral. A crowd cheers as narration reveals today is Lila's wedding day. A magnificent white and gold carriage arrives for the ceremony.
The carriage wheels come to a smooth halt before the cathedral.
Inside, Cassel thinks that this is the perfect day for revenge. He and Sereniel, wearing a dark green dress and a black veil, walk together. Sereniel's gaze is sharp and determined from behind her lace veil. At the altar, the bride Layla and her groom Lord Spencer stand together. A priest announces the marriage of Princess Lila and Lord Spencer. Watching from the pews, Sereniel thinks she has endured everything for this moment. She knows this is her only chance, and failure means she's doomed. She nervously clenches her hands, her heart pounding in her chest. Castle gently takes her hand, whispering, "Seren, it's okay." He offers a reassuring smile, telling her she isn't wrong. Sereniel finds comfort in his words and agrees, calling his name.
The priest continues the rites, announcing Layla Graham by name.
Layla and her groom look on as the priest prepares to finalize the union. A hand is raised as a voice declares, "I am against this marriage."
Sereniel stands tall, the source of the shocking objection.
Wedding guests gasp in disbelief, wondering if she's lost her mind. The crowd recognizes her, whispering about the monster princess.
Layla looks on in stunned silence as the guests murmur about revenge. A blonde guest angrily demands to know what Sereniel is doing. Sereniel calmly announces her intent to make an accusation.
The blonde guest shouts, asking if she's trying to stop the ceremony.
A high nobleman quiets the woman and allows Sereniel to continue.
Sereniel gestures toward a guest, identifying him as Marquis Burton.
The crowd whispers in confusion about the Marquis's presence.
Sereniel declares she won't allow her sister to marry a traitor's son.
Layla smirks, mocking Sereniel's lack of royal standing.
Marquis Burton rises, questioning why she would call him a traitor.
The gray-haired Marquis stands confidently, cane in hand.
Sereniel directly accuses him of placing the curse on her.
The guests are horrified, questioning if the accusation is true. Feigning reluctance, the Marquis asks Sereniel why she is doing this.
Sereniel stares back coldly, telling him not to play the fool. The Marquis calmly challenges her, asking if she has any evidence.
She confidently asks if he truly believes she came unprepared.
Sereniel vows to expose his crime in front of everyone.
The Marquis stares in shock, realizing her curse wounds have vanished. Layla looks on in disbelief, wondering how she was cured. Layla trembles with rage, regretting her invitation.
She screams that her wedding is ruined because of Sereniel.
Her groom, Lord Spencer, tries to calm her down, pleading for her to stop.
As Layla calls for Sir Castle, he firmly grabs her wrist, reminding her of his previous warning.
A high nobleman in a furred cape rises, demanding silence from the crowd. He asks Sereniel how her curse was cleansed and what it has to do with the Marquis.
Sereniel presents Castle with a chest containing a glowing blue stone, asking him to look inside.
She holds the luminescent artifact, explaining its power to purify curses. When asked why she kept it secret, Sereniel explains the stone alone is not enough to completely remove the curse. Facing the Marquis, she declares the curse will remain as long as its caster lives. Sereniel states that the proof lies on the Marquis's own hand. She explains that curse casters receive a similar curse and notes he began wearing gloves right when her wounds appeared.
Challenged to remove his gloves, the Marquis nervously asks why he should.
Sereniel presses him, suggesting he might be hiding wounds identical to her own.
The Marquis agrees to remove his gloves to prove his innocence. Believing victory is imminent, Sereniel is suddenly stunned by what she sees. The Marquis reveals a hand covered in burn scars, not curse wounds, shocking Sereniel.
As he confidently removes the glove, Sereniel's mind reels in confusion.
The Marquis displays his scarred hand, leaving Sereniel to question the absence of the curse wounds. Staring at his hand, she desperately wonders where the wounds went. The Marquis calmly explains he received the burn scar 5 years ago after falling into a fireplace. Feigning innocence, he apologizes for the misunderstanding, while Serenil internally calls out his obvious lie. She realizes the burn scars look far too fresh to be 5 years old. Serenil understands his devious plan. He burned his own hand to hide the curse, anticipating her accusation. The guests murmur among themselves, concluding that Serenil was clearly mistaken. Whispers spread that the monster princess tried to frame the Marquis, leaving Serenil isolated. The blonde guest mockingly asks Serenil what she plans to do now. Layla and Lord Spencer watch with cold, victorious expressions. The blonde woman continues her tirade, declaring that Serenil will always be a person who ruins the lives of others. Defeated, Serenil wonders if this is the end after all her hard work. A sudden thought strikes her, and her expression shifts with realization. She recalls a crucial fact: the caster's curse scar will never vanish until her own is lifted. Serenil's eyes fill with renewed determination. She formally apologizes to the Marquis for her accusation about his burn marks. As the blonde woman calls for her arrest, Serenil interrupts, vowing to take responsibility. She offers to heal Marquis Burton's burn scars, shocking him. Holding the glowing artifact, she explains that magic stones possess healing power. She clarifies that while the stone can heal the curse temporarily, it will always reappear after a short time, terrifying the Marquis. The Marquis nervously stammers, refusing her kind offer. Castle blocks the Marquis' escape, asking why he won't accept the healing he's been offered. The Marquis panics, desperately telling Cassel to get out of his way. Dropping his cane, he screams that he needs no healing and demands they stay away. Castle restrains the struggling Marquis as Serenil approaches with the stone. With the glowing stone in hand, Serenil declares it's time to expose the truth. A brilliant blue light envelops the Marquis as he cries out in pain. The high nobleman and the blonde guest watch in disbelief as she orders the guards to arrest Serenil. Horrified, the Marquis stares as the burn scars on his hand fade, revealing the dark curse marks beneath. The wedding gasps in horror, exclaiming, "It's the curse!" A guest shouts that there is a wound on the Marquis' hand. The Marquis desperately denies that the mark is the curse. He stumbles back and falls, lamenting his years of failed planning. On his knees, he desperately begs Lila for help, reminding her they were allies. Lila turns away with a cold, uncaring expression. She feigns ignorance, claiming his problems don't concern her. As the Marquis stares in disbelief, Serenil announces that the results are clear. Castle calmly tells Marquis Burton to stop resisting and confess. With a stern gaze, Castle warns that his patience is at its limit. The high nobleman orders the guards to take Marquis Burton away immediately. As 2 guards seize him, the Marquis struggles and shouts to be released. Restrained by a guard, he boasts that he will soon be part of the royal family. He furiously accuses the entire Tildrian clan of setting a trap for him. In a last-ditch effort, the Marquis demands a formal trial. He vows to prove that this was all a ploy by the monster princess.